Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, another session of AGS, the Airline Ground Service Digital Summit, and got three great guests here. So firstly, and in no particular order, but I've got Serife Akin, who's the Vice President Procurement, Pegasus Airlines. So Serife, lovely to have you on board with us.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you. Then we've got Mete, Erna, General Manager, Havas Ground Handling Company. Mete, lovely to see you and speak with you again.
Great to be here with you, Chris. Thank you.
Lovely. And then finally, and by no means least, we've got Geert Aerts, Director Cargo and Logistics for Brussels Airport Company. Geert, lovely to have you on board.
Good afternoon, Chris. Likewise, thank you for having me.
Right, lovely. Now, before we get into the subject matter, guys, what would be nice is just a very short, brief little bio, something that would make everybody go, wow, I didn't know that. What an interesting point. So without putting any of you under pressure, if you can just say a little bit about yourselves, what you do, what your main responsibilities or accountabilities are.
Okay, let me start then, right, yeah. Chris? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us, first of all. My name is Serife. I'm the Vice President for Pegasus Airlines procurement for more than 5 years currently. So I've been with the company over 11 years. Previously, I used to be the technical supply manager before. And this is my third company. Before I was with Honor Airlines and Atlas Jets. So what we are doing as procurement, we are doing centralized procurement in Pegasus Airlines. Apart from the aircraft itself, we are buying everything that we pay. So it's fuel, ground handling, airports, technical, indirect services. So it's all been purchased by my team. We are based in Sabiha Gökçen, which is our main base for our flights. So I hope it will be a joyful one for us today. Thank you.
I'm sure it will. Thank you. Thank you very much, Serife.
Thank you.
Okay, who'd like to go next?
Well, let me introduce myself very quickly. As you said, I'm General Manager for Havas Ground Handling, Chris, since almost 1 year now. I have 25 years of experience in the industry. Majority of that is on the commercial side of ground handling and cargo as well. That's all besides being a guy who in the past bought a boat with a hole in it, as you know very well.
I know very well, my friends. Hey, how to inspire the listeners right from the very beginning. That's brilliant. Yeah, no, good. Thank you very much, Mete. And always good to have a sense of humour, especially what are after what we've all come through over this terrible 16 to 18 months. So thank you very much. And Geert?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Indeed, my name is Geert Aerts. I'm the Director of Cargo Logistics at Brussels Airport Company. I've been working almost 18 years in the industry in more operational roles, actually for the EMEA region, and joined in the beginning of the year. I joined Brussels Airport Company in this role, which is in particularly focused on the product and network development, which means that as an airport, we want to make sure that we are the facilitator of a community and an ecosystem, and make sure that we track this business. We put a lot of effort on community as one of my key roles to stimulate that and stimulate that collaboration, as well as obviously the real estate developments that traditionally come with it. So these are some of the key points, but last and not least, also further develop and lead our digital transformation that we are well underway at Brussels Airport.
Good, lovely. So all topics that are going to be hot, and we need to make some movement on them all. So brilliant, right? Thanks very much for that, guys. So now the actual subject matter that we're going to be talking about is obviously we can't dismiss or we can't overlook, you know, the way everybody still keeps talking about this damn pandemic and COVID. But, you know, it was a shock. It will be a shock, and I'm sure all those generations that are to come, when they look back, they'll realise what a terrible shock it was, especially to our industry. But we have to live with it now. We have to continue. You know, understanding that there's going to be an impact around for some time. So the session that we're on today is what must change, because obviously learnings are important, but if you don't do anything different, then they've been a waste of time as well. So airports taking the lead. And Geert, thanks very much for that intro there. But also airport and GHA partnerships and airline selection of airports and those GHA selections. So that's where we are today. So now, firstly, I just want to kick the ball onto the field of play there for you, which is I've always believed that one of the key instrumental forces of any change for the future has got to be the airport. Okay, too many airports have had different approaches, and we know there's different constellations and ownership issues and different guidelines and ground rules and formats, etc., for airports all around the world. But in the main, an airport is an ecosystem in itself that should influence its tenants, should influence the level of quality, and should want to influence the future proofing of that particular airport. So the collective body become a marketing tool for the entire ecosystem, and they sell it then on the world's platform. And then it's up to airlines to decide which airports actually fit their products, their services, the way of thinking, the culture, etc., and obviously economic opportunities, and then make selections accordingly. But with the knowledge that they know that so many things now that are important are being addressed by the orchestra director, shall we say, which is the airport management team. Okay, now that's where we want to start. So now we can, I mean, like I said, it's up to you where we start, but I think probably at this point, Geert, this is an opportunity for you to sell yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay, and this is an opportunity for you to sell yourself well as to what you've done, why you did it, and whether or not you think you're ahead of the fields, or whether or not you think there's a group of airports now who are either following, mimicking, or agreeing with the concepts that you've put into place. So if you want to go, free speech now, my friends. Give it your best sell.
Very well, very well. So let me first start that I fully and wholeheartedly agree with what you just said on the role of an airport has had and should have in the future as well. And even in this disruptive times, it comes with opportunity as well. And I think an airport, you called it, I guess, referring to tenants, a landlord. It's also an operator, but moreover, I think it's absolutely a logistic platform provider. And and that's what we've aspired to be, and that's what we think we've become, and that's what we want to be more. I think what needs to change within the industry and the role that we want to play in there is also being that platform within that ecosystem that provides for more interoperability. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It will stay a difficult word, this one. But also, I think working towards the real challenge that's coming at us, the real disruption, that's the climate change. So we also need to become, and here comes the buzzword, more sustainable. And sustainable comes obviously in very different ways: planet, people, and prosperity. But as an airport role, I see very much three converging elements where we think we need to play our role. And you named the first one already very explicitly. That's community. We're a community builder. We look at the ecosystem. It's, for me, the first one is community and people. Strengthen their community work, as we have done with Air Cargo Belgium. We have a very strong community, as you know, in Brussels. And encourage that operational collaboration within that frame. Everyone is equal in that community working. We have a role to play as an airport in there, but you see, by providing that platform again, providing that opportunity for the ecosystem partners to connect, you there create that collaborations from the smaller things, such as campaigning together on, for instance, people recruitment, which is a common challenge these days, a good challenge to have, but a challenge nonetheless. Yeah. But also working towards an image and a branding image also for as a cargo operator, also on a bigger airport community, which is also passenger airports, on, hey, this is also best place of work, and this is also preferred employer. It's not just on the passenger side, diversified, sustainable, and dynamic. So that's number one. Two is infrastructure, obviously, and the classic ones. I look at the land side on providing the infrastructure, optimized infrastructure, multimodal, linked towards other transport modes, be more than an airport, be really a logistic platform, which is multimodal. Yeah. And with the aspirations and with the clear ambitions to become more sustainable environmentally, sustainable as well. And it's net zero carbon buildings, using energy infrastructure that's geared towards green energy, circular economy, etc. But also on the air side, also on the synthetic aviation fuel mixing installations. We've recently won the European Green Deal nomination to together with 20 other partners, really venture in synthetic aviation fueling and electronic ground service equipment for our handlers, and provide a platform again also for our strong partners, the handler community at our airport, the means and the facilitation to also meet their objectives. And I think thirdly is the processes. Process to become more sustainable, you need to become more digital. And in order to become more digital, again, you need that collaboration to even standardize and harmonize around some processes and interconnect. We've done this with BlueCloud, and we're definitely not there yet. I think we still have a journey to go, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's a moving target. And you see that recently in the broader airport community, digital transformation is not the big next thing anymore. It's today, and all the airports and all the airport communities are really investing in there, and that's absolutely required to truly invest on digitizing, optimized, and standardized processes that provide that visibility, the transparency, but also help us cut the waste in our daily processes. And by innovating in this, by thinking that differently, by stimulating more predictive cargo flows amongst those players within that ecosystem, probably with artificial intelligence enabled in the future, these are typical the things that we're looking at, we will then become a lot more interoperable, which will make us a lot more resilient against those disruptive peaks that we've seen, both on the good side, the good challenge we have. There's a lot of demand right now for airlift, given the crisis at sea. So, but making us a lot more scalable as an industry, a lot more flexible or resilient as an industry as well to meet those challenges and capture the good opportunities of it as well. So for me, these are the three main points that as an airport, again, people and community, infrastructure and processes and the digitalization of it, that we can play a very active role in, that we have been playing it as a testimony a bit, that we see that the industry is stepping up towards, but definitely that will help us as an industry going forward to meet our sustainability challenges and goals that we put ourselves towards.
Well, I think that was a very good sales pitch, Geert. I think you've done very well. You've got the job, so well done, my friend. No, but seriously, I mean, you've got a track record and you know, and a very positive one as well. And what you said there makes an awful lot of sense. I just want to throw one thing at you. You threw the 3 Ps there: the planet, the people, and you use prosperity. I'm a little bit more blunt, which is profit. And sure. At the end of the day, you know, there's an awful lot of noise coming from people who are jumping on the bandwagon and the politics and everything that's going on TV screens and newspapers. And it's all going, you know, it's really going crazy at the moment. And thank God the younger generations are taking such an interest in it. But we mustn't lose sight over this 2 to 3, maybe 5-year balancing period, that if there isn't any money around, you're not going to be able to put money into the planet anyhow. So it doesn't matter how much talking or whatever. So people need to focus on the other sustainability, which is of the business itself as well. And thereafter, perhaps there should be a code of conduct or a code of practice or prerequisites of how people then deal with that positivity as they move forward. Now, one thing I just want to ask you about the Green Deal or going green. We've had other sessions where we were talking about GSE, and even if everybody wanted to turn and switch over to electric, they couldn't, because there isn't the power, the surge, there isn't the capability at airports. So there's an awful lot to be done, which brings me to the fact that surely now airports should now be looking at the next phase or the next generation, and they should be making sure that they future-proof everything in that airport. So whether it's to do with ground services, basic logistics, whether it's to do with the type of facility, whether it's solar powered, all these issues, because there are so many hidden sustainable heroes that people don't assume. They just go for the catchy ones. So I think you'd agree with that, yeah?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Very much top of mind. I mean, it's quite a can that we open if we want to get there and remain relevant within the global industry in the next years to come. And I think recently as an airport, we've really used this disruption to us and this crisis that came over us also to sit back and think a bit, okay, where are we going to be in 15 years and rethink a bit where we will be in 15 years and work backwards from those what we call the North Star ambitions, work backwards from those. What are the things that we need to consider already today that will get us to survive tomorrow? And obviously that comes with a roadmap, because you're absolutely right. We can't, everything that we should do, we should do that with that in mind, but we should do this on the pace that's, yes, ambitions and ambitions to the goals that and the challenges that we as an industry face and as a world probably face without going too philosophical over this. But at the same time, it needs to also be sustainable as a business. We need to continue making profit, at least not the losses that we've been making the last 2 years during the crisis, and recover from that. So there's only so much we can do. And it's good that everyone steps on the barrier and says we're going to be net zero carbon by year X, way before the European 2050 goals. I just still want to see it. I think we all need to be realistic on what is really that we can achieve. But I think there's a lot we can achieve. There's low-hanging fruit there, and there's some of the more complex elements that we need to work on. When people ask me, why do you want to? Personally, why do you want to work for an industry that's the perception is so polluting the global climate? Why do you want to do this? And I say, I'd rather be part of the solution. I'd rather be steering that ship or that plane through the wild turbulence and be part of the solution that actually eventually will bring us there, because supply chains will have to survive. I mean, this is the basis, the underlying basis of our economy and from the well-being of all the people that thrive from it. So I think we have a role to play, and I'd rather have an active role to play.
100%. And like I said, you use the 3 P words, and perhaps if there was 3 R words, it would be realistic, right, and rules. And, you know, we need to start now going back to basics to make sure certain things are done and people follow it and they do the right thing at the right time for the right reason, because there's so much waste going on. Now, thanks very much for that. So now Serife, Mete, no competition, but now you've got to equal Geert's opening gambit there. So, but seriously, either one of you now, from whichever one of the perspectives you choose, do you think airports are doing enough? And how would you like to see airports, move and do things differently that would help your business? Okay. And just for all of you, just a little bit of a heads up, at the end of the session, I'm going to ask you all for a short little wish list of what you would wish for in the next 3 to 9 months to make an impact on the words that we're talking about: collaboration, data sharing, digitization, etc. But also, what would your flip side of the coin commitments be in those 3, 6, 9 months that would also show that there was a collaborative and a more positive approach? Okay, so that's just to give you a heads up, just in case you want to prepare something while others are talking. But now, so do you think airports are doing enough? How do you think airports should change? In what areas do you think they should be looking at? And this is totally open now, because luckily I've been traveling quite a bit lately. And one of the things that I've started to listen to is people on the old buses, you know, from the terminal to the stand. And if you have to go onto a remote stand and you hear people saying, you know, why we got to go this far, and it's 15 minutes now, and this is wasting fuel, and all these things that you start hearing people talk about, which they were talking about before probably, but you don't take so much notice. So now the public are also looking, they're looking at the quality of the GSE, they're looking at the way the ramps are organized, they're looking at how clean things are, they're looking at the way the staff are performing. Little things like a co-bus hitting a curb and somebody saying, why did they build the curb so high? So what are airports doing, or what are they not doing that you would like to see? So whichever one of you would like to jump in first, feel free.
Ladies first.
Thank you so much, Mete. Chris, first of all, I don't think that airports are very well organized after COVID situation. So okay, nobody was expecting that much rapid change in aviation. because we came from 0 to hundreds in a day. So nobody was yet prepared, but starting from the first point of passenger, the airports should be the prior ones who should be prepared for this rapid change.
Yeah.
So, but when we look at European airports, especially, by the way, we are not flying to Brussels. We are flying to Charleroi, the other airport there. So when we are looking at European airports, we see that there's a big problem in manpower, especially in ramp and passenger side. So plus, when we look at the previous times, we can see that there's a lot change in passport controls. And again, there's a big manpower problem also there. So we always discussed if we fly, is there any chance that we could catch COVID in the aircraft? But nobody has asked, when we wait within the airports, is there a chance, is there a risk that we catch it, okay? So because people wait a lot more at the airports than they are in the aircraft itself. So we need to focus on this. And airports should be doing very proactive jobs here, talking with the airlines, talking with the ground handling agents, okay? Because they cannot see the capacity right now, but when there's a problem or when they see that there's a capacity oversize problem, but real-time problem, they try to make some solutions there, but it's not good for the airlines' reputations or good for the ground handling reputation.
Yeah.
To be honest, it should be the first airline itself. It's his responsibility to call us and to talk about these problems. Okay, I understand people are not back 100% to jobs, okay? And when the aviation is muted, let me say, for the lockdown periods, people went to find some other jobs and they stayed there. So people see that aviation is a risky business right now. So there could be another thing like COVID, or the COVID could be more stronger again and they could lose their job. I can understand that. But, you know, if you cannot find people to work in the airport itself or work in the ground handling itself, so you cannot fly that aircraft. We are so much connected to each other. And just go to one simple European airport, okay? You can see that the majority of the passport desks are closed. The ramps are slow. The passenger desks are very crowded. So we are talking about, not doing this business in risky ways, but waiting in one closed area is making the risk very highly. And still, we don't see any clear point of view how we will be getting on these problems, because this is affecting the airlines very much.
Yeah.
When you think about the passenger side, passenger sees that the airline is delaying, okay? The airline is not on time, but nobody is talking about, okay, there's a problem in the airport and that's why the airline is delayed. So nobody can see that, okay? This is not the passenger's duty, of course, to understand and to realize that. So it's just the airline and the passenger itself facing the problem. When we look at our country, to be honest, we don't see that much problem on the manpower side, because, for example, Havas is doing our biggest hold of the ground handling in Turkey. So thanks to themselves, we haven't had any manpower problem, or we didn't have any delays about this. So we catched up too quickly. Still, the airports are very crowded, okay, but the people are trying to fly as much as they can, because the business really survives with traveling for people.
Yeah.
So people earn money while traveling also. So okay, we have the chance to sit and to do it digitally, everything, but some people have to travel and have to go somewhere to earn some money to do his business. So it's not easy. In Turkey, I believe that we recovered good enough. But of course, when we go out from Turkey and when we go out to especially some European countries, we really face a big problem. We are talking with the ground handling agents and the airports itself so frequently. For example, I'm doing the contracts, I'm doing the procurement for the airline, but right now we are 100% within the operation because we have to be. Otherwise, so just having one contract in your hand and thinking that everything will be going so smooth and so okay, it doesn't take you anywhere. So we are fully in the operation, talking with ground handling agents every week. Seriously, I have a specialized team who travels to Europe every day to different destinations, looking to see if everything is going on time or not. So first of all, the airports needs more manpower, I can say.
Right.
The people shouldn't be seeing it risky to work in aviation again. So people has to be warned here, okay, in this idea. Whatever happens, the airline business, the airport business will go on. So people will travel for sure.
Yep.
So we learned how to live with it. From now on, we learned it, and we will obey the rules, and we will keep on.
Yeah.
I don't believe that we will take off our masks and go into the aircraft. I don't believe that. But the airline business will live forever, you know. So we have to live with it.
Yeah, no, fully agreed. Just on a couple of the points that you said there. Now, the brain drain, everybody is acknowledging it, and it's not just our industry, but it is affecting the supply chain hugely. And there's going to be bigger impacts now as we get into the end of the year and into January and February. However, that in itself is a problem, but it's not a problem that's solved by everybody saying that, you know, people were paid too less, and now what we've got to do is increase the salaries. That doesn't solve it. Okay, that just adds to the inflationary pressures for everybody. But something that I think can and could break down certain barriers is individuals, and especially those on the floor. Okay, so feet on ground employees, the ones who have to deal with the services at the rough end, whether the climate is hot, cold, indifferent, whether they're under pressure, etc. If they were allowed to also enhance their own personal asset value by being upskilled, reskilled, new skilled, or multi-skilled, or if we looked at things differently and split the amount of physical activity on a hardship shift with activities on an administrative side before and after, so you sort of split it, and you gave people the opportunity to understand the relay team principle of the process that they're involved in. So the accuracy of the information that comes to them allows them to perform their jobs better. And if they do that very well, the after amount is even better, and that reduces waste and everything. Now, do you think that we could have something like a multi-skilled task force or SWAT team that could be run by airports, and anybody could pull into those resources as and when they needed, which would also help if airports started to do that for when individual tenants of an airport, when their schedule started to speed up or slow down, etc., there would be a way of doing things. Now, that's just one small idea. The other thing is the complexity at the airports, and I agree with you, because I was talking to one of the immigration officers at one airport, and I said, why there's only 2 of you there when there's 4 flights being done? And he said, we know how long it's going to process. So he said, we either have a queue that we can control, or we have a queue that gets agitated in an open area. So I think the airports now have got to start working with the whole process and experience, because everywhere, whether it's restaurants, whether it's retail, whether it's in car manufacturing, the first thing that somebody says when there's bad service is, we don't have enough staff, or we're short of staff, or there isn't enough staff available. Well, from a consumer's point of view, you can be sympathetic up to a certain point, but it's starting to grate on people now. And companies that are going to start focusing on how to do things differently, whether they like to collaborate or they like to data share, they're going to have to, because the consumers are going to start speaking with their feet. And speaking about airports in Europe, I mean, that's what gave so many people the opportunities to go by road, because every airport had a different perception of its limitations, embargoes and restrictions, which confuses people. So from that point, it's very risky. Now, Mete, okay, you've had a lot of time there to think and to listen, okay, and a man who can solve a problem, and dare I say it again, it's a different time for a different story, but a man who buys a boat with a hole in it is a very confident man, and he knows how he can fix things. Now, what would you suggest needs to be done from your perspective, and looking at your colleagues, you know, GHAs around the world, who actually they do need now a different approach moving forward, because they're the ones who purchase so many assets, and everybody else benefits.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious there is a very big disruption at the labor market before anything else. And that's, as you said correctly, is not only in our industry, it's in many other industries. It's a general problem. And it seems to be a global problem, at least for the developed and developing economies. It was nice to hear from Serife that they didn't have too many problems with Havas, but no. I have to admit that we were not immune to those problems, and we had our difficulties also during that process. But I have to admit also that we felt those problems much more strongly in the European markets where we operate. I mean, I think nobody at the moment is yet able to understand the main reason of this disruption in the labor markets. There are a lot of jobs which are open, and there is a lot of unemployed people, but those are not matching.
Yeah.
The cost of living changed very, very quickly during the last 1 year, especially after the opening of the curfews in many countries. And it seems like the employers are coming from behind in understanding what the employees are going through, or what the expectation of the people in the labor market is. Also, there have been an exodus from the big cities, I believe, in the past, at least in some countries. And some of those people are hesitant to come back to the big cities. Yeah. They found their way. So there is a lot of things changing in elements which are affecting the labor market. And it will take time to digest all that for the employers and to take necessary action. But we need some urgent solutions. And yes, pooling of resources can be something which can help in that respect. That's something we did very successfully in our operation in Latvia, in Riga Airport, together with the airport operator, RIX, who is our competitor as the ground handler, but it was not enough to solve the problem. Despite we put all our resources together, there was still shortage of employees, and the airlines suffered from this lack of employees. I think one thing we have to acknowledge all was that, maybe decades ago, the airports were much more involved in the ground handling industry, but especially in Europe after 97, the market was liberalized, and many airports pulled their hands out from this industry. And both for airlines and by the airports as well, the presence and readiness of the ground handlers for all and every type of operation was taken for granted. Until the pandemic, the ground handling industry was able to respond to that expectation. But now we see a point where even if we do all we can as ground handlers, we may be short of being able to do what the industry requires, what the airlines requires, what the airport and passenger require. One of the things which we considered in the past, where we had similar problems in much smaller scale, was to request the airport authority, for instance, to reconsider their slot allocations.
Yeah.
And when allowing slots, to consider also the ground handling capability available at the airport when they allow flights to their airports. That was a reminder to those authorities when we discussed with them that they should not take it for granted that the ground handler will be there with whatever resources needed. A new passenger service employee takes 1 month only to train, let alone the employment period. It can be quicker, of course, but if you do it, if you want to do it properly and including the on-the-job training, it's around 1 month. A ramp employee cannot come shortest 1 week, but ideally you need 2 weeks at least to have the confidence to let that person go under the aircraft, which is a very delicate instrument, by the way. So it is obvious that everybody has to put their hands together under the stone to lift it at this point. I mean, the airlines are very big financial entities. The ground handlers are smaller companies with limited equities. So the risks the ground handlers can take are also limited in that respect. I see self-handling from airlines also becoming a trend during these days. It's a fact we have to accept, and the ground handlers have to look at themselves also before complaining about this. There is a reason why the airlines are considering self-handling, seeing that they are unable to solve some of their problems with the current ground handlers. And that's understandable. But I also see that many times the airlines who are rejecting to face the problems they have when they are being served by ground handlers are feeling ready to afford the same kind of problems they have with ground handlers, also when they are doing self-handling. So I believe they feel more comfortable when they do certain things by themselves, because they cannot be confident that the ground handler they are working with is doing everything in its capacity. But while if you are doing self-handling, then you know that you tried your best. So I think that's a transparency problem in the market. And it's not something to blame on the ground handlers only, because I see also that the airlines need to be able what they will pay for the ground handling in the midterm or the short term at least. And they are not very interested to have flexible financial schemes when it comes to remuneration of the ground handlers. I think this is an area which needs to be addressed. There is a lot of unpredictability in the industry still at the moment, and that's one of the reasons why people are hesitant to return back to our industry. The employees are hesitant on that. That lack of predictability puts a pressure on the ground handlers as well. Either they have to offer high prices to cover the future possible risks, or they need to risk losing money and maybe pull out of the market in the future.
Sorry. I'll let you finish.
And basically, I fully appreciate the need from the airline side to know what they are going to pay. But sometimes the conditions change so quickly that it is not within the capability of the ground handler to do it properly. So we need some kind of transparent relationship between the airline and the ground handler. And at that point, maybe the airport can contribute to that as a referee, as an independent party who can double check the data in hand, the market, whatever factors are changing, and can feel the airline more comfortable when the ground handler is unable to perform its job properly and comes to the airline asking for a different financial deal.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if I may,
that's on top of the pooling, obviously. Pooling is always something, but is not enough at this moment, at least.
Yeah,
we are already doing pooling, you know, Mete.
Yeah,
but
unfortunately, yes.
If I can just cover some of the points that were covered now. Okay, right. So firstly, in the ground handling business, it's been a race to the bottom. Okay, and it's price, and it's not doing anybody any good. There's a lack of margin transparency in the industry now as well, and a lack of margin appreciation and understanding. So if people are allowed to do some of the things that they've done, and Serife, from a procurement side of perspective, I've seen some of the decisions that have been made, by carriers, and it's purely procurement price driven. Okay, and that doesn't make sense in the long term. And then when you look at a forwarder who then has an agreement with a carrier who wants the very best for his customer, then the carrier looks at the, shall we say, the most receptive or flexible GHA, and then you've actually lost the whole principle there, which is why I think an airport who would come in with a code of conduct or a code of practice that they manage based on the other side of the sustainable coin, which is, can that company sustain what they're doing with the level of services? So the areas that should be reviewed or looked at there, in my opinion, is margin transparency, obviously the efficiency and productivity that's necessary against certain standards. Also, safety and security is zero tolerance, and the understanding of sustainability and employee development. Because if I was starting out again and I thought I was working for an airport that allowed me to have cross-skilling, to do so much and learn so much, and I was proud of working for that airport and that engagement and passion and pride, I would love to see that come back again. Because most of us, or most of the people that are of my age anyhow, none of us intended to get into this business, and especially not cargo. Nobody could say they were sitting in a classroom and when the teacher said, what do you want to be? They said, no, I don't want to be a footballer. I don't want to be a pilot. I want to be in cargo. They would have probably been put in a room on their own, But it's because we had relatives or friends, or we lived close to it. But at the end of the day, people then started to respect what you were doing. And as people started to travel more, they could see a bit of a glamorous side. And I still say, when you get on that aircraft and you sit and you look out the window and you see all that activity, and there's so many other activity cycles that people don't appreciate that are associated with an aircraft, and the fact that it's done the same almost in every single airport where an aircraft lands or takes off, the opportunity to work abroad and to really experience things is fantastic. And I think now, if ever we're going to do something for a common purpose and collaboration, people have got to start getting back to that again. And one of the earliest ways of doing it is not making our business as complex as it is. And Mete, like I've been on the handling side, I've been on the carrier side, and I know on the carrier side, you want to push. And on the handling side, you think, oh my God, why are they making it so complex? And at the end of the day, very few people measure the SLAs from either side. And very few of them even know how to measure it properly. And it's only when something goes wrong that they put far too much effort into finger pointing and blame. And the worst two words anybody can introduce is they and them. And, this is all about us now moving forward. And I think the airports now, this is an opportunity now to be different. And you were talking there, Mete, about whether carriers are going to go back to self-handling. If they're going back to self-handling, it means their original concept was a failure, and it means the original partnership with GHAs is also a failure. So nobody's won there. So I think there needs to be some sort of a hybrid model whereby carriers understand and appreciate the margins and they work alongside selected best-in-class handling agents, or airports work closely with GHAs to make sure that that particular level of standard in that airport constitutes the best choice for anybody who wants to go somewhere. And we must never forget the consumer, because the service standards and the service levels at the moment, okay, irrespective of what anybody says, are very, 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 very poor. And some of the logic and common sense, even like I had a guy yesterday and he was giving me earache because I know him personally. Okay. And also one of my brothers, he owns his own freight forwarding company. And he calls me up and he says, "You're always on these podcasts and you're talking to people." He said, "How can it be that 3 vans with single parcels have to wait behind a 40-footer or something else to just drop off the packages?" He said, "Where's the sense of waiting 4 and 5 hours to drop off a couple of pieces?" He said, "It's madness." And it is. And, you know, some of these remote control posts and pre-deliver, I mean, we've actually made things so much more complex, and we don't penalize people who arrive at the wrong time, who store cargo for the wrong reasons and don't collect it. And we don't also collaborate well enough at airports with all of the official bodies, whether it's customs, whether it's immigration, whether it's any other support service. Those are the areas now where we can get together, become more efficient. And also, those are some of the hidden sustainable heroes, because if we cut down an awful lot of that waste, we're also helping not just people, but profit and ultimately the planet. So the question is, Mete, when are you going to do something directly with an airport? Geert, what's your next plan to do something with a hybrid model whereby you're involved in supporting from a pooling system or whatever? And Serife, what's the areas that you would like to see in a future agreement with perhaps an airport and a handling agent?
Well, let me start. We don't do it still, and I don't know if it will ever happen with an airport, but we have experience of doing this with airlines. Basically, we have deals in our network through our subsidiaries as well, where the remuneration of the ground handling company is based on the cost. And I can tell you, it's very difficult to make it work. It's not easy. Exactly as you said, it's not only about transparency about the resources, it's about the transparency of the margins as well. So this is where you have to come to an agreement what would be a fair margin with your customer. And the customer should also feel comfortable that you are doing your best, because if you have the margin guaranteed, what's your incentive to make it more cost efficient? So yeah, you need a proper set of SLAs or let's say efficiency targets.
Transparency.
Guaranteed margin. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Transparency should be mutual. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it could be governed by an airport.
Yeah, I mean, that can be the case. I mean, in the end, what we did is based on the mutual goodwill of the two sides, the airline and the ground handling company. And obviously, it may not work at all cases. But if you have the airport and as the in-between, as the authority to facilitate that, to double check that, or to create the transparency needed to either side, well, maybe it can be a much better working system, and it can even help both ground handlers and eventually the airlines to be able to get services at more economical rates, but more sustainably for everyone.
Okay, Geert, you've been quiet after your introduction there, so this is a chance for you now to get back out there on the orchestra leaders podium.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there's a lot has been said, and a lot of that was music to my ears, just to paraphrasing your orchestra language there. But definitely, I think just going back on what Mete was saying, yes, we do see it as a role and as an enabler to the business to create a level playing field a lot more amongst the industry by doing so, as setting in some guidelines that allow with the ground handlers also to jump. I think that's, if you've asked me earlier, what is the commitment that we're looking for instance, from ground handlers, is to, and I know it's difficult in a challenging environment that you are in today, but is to sit back 5 minutes a day and just not worry about the concerns of today, but also look at what's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And take a leap with us, take a jump with us on, for instance, sharing your data into a data sharing pool that we make available that will create that transparency. And I know it's challenging and it's a leap, and there is a risk that from the pie, the other one gets a bigger piece of the pie. But in the end, I think what the roles that we have as an airport is not to share those pie and share it equally. Our role with you is to make the pie bigger. That's what we want to do. We want to make the pie bigger. So what I'm looking for is that commitment that we can sometimes 5 minutes a day, just look a little bit further than today or even tomorrow, but the day after tomorrow, and take that leap on. And we'll play our active role in that. We'll even invest in those digital tools. We'll play our active role in setting those guidelines and creating a level playing field and going into discussion with yourselves. And then coming back maybe on the question, and a very good idea of resource pooling, what are you prepared to do? In fact, it's a huge challenge right now at Brussels Airport. If we want to grow the pie, we need to find the people to do it. We need to be able to recruit, retain, and foster the talents that is needed to help us grow.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy task to do. What we've done so far, in fact, last Monday, we had our discussion through our Air Cargo Belgium community with all the ground handlers on exactly that topic. How can we, supported by the airport, even facilitated by the airport through an agency, set up a resource pool that can help us managing the peaks and the dals of the people requirements on one side for the handlers. And obviously there's a challenge that mostly the peaks are all the same for all 4 handlers here at Brussels Airport, but also at the same time, also reinforce the employer branding, that it is a passionate job to be in, it is a fun job to be in, it's a job for the future, and it's not a job that has suffered in the last 18 months so badly that you couldn't find work anymore. So that's the kind of things that we are investing in last Monday, and we'll pick it up today and tomorrow as well, and that we want to really play an active role into this.
So if I'm hearing it right, Geert, and it's something that I'm really passionate about as well, is that you'd almost, right, so you want to create an airport brand or an airport DNA and culture.
Yes.
So by doing so, you could actually create an airport academy, which would be supported by all of the partners so that they weren't having the individual expense on top of everything else that they've got. Then you've got an employee experience platform where they get the chance to rotate through all of those partnership companies, and they see the type of the business that they want with an overview or an oversight of the entire process. And then what would be ideal is that you have some sort of a recruitment draft at a certain period of time once each batch of employees passes through the airport academy. And then subject to the way people recruit them and how long they stay for the company and the type of extra training or extra support or guidelines or guidance they're given, that's what moves them up or down the draft ladder. So a little bit like NFL and basketball.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's exactly that. And where we are today with our subsidiary Aviato Academy, we already have a portion of that. We already have an academy which we make available, dangerous goods courses or onboarding courses for the cargo handling agents that we're looking for, and the ramp agents that we're looking for. So we're partly there. Definitely still a lot of work to do, but it's something that we definitely want to pursue as one of our priorities as an airport.
Yeah, but instead of just having integral key milestones of competence, if you actually created a career passport for these guys at an airport, of which some of those training courses would obviously be a part of it, and that also helped with their selection process, how well they did. So there's got to be a return commitment from the individuals with the amount of effort they put into it and how well they do. So they themselves would see where they are in a league table, so they would know that, you know, there's less likelihood to get the best job that's on offer if they don't put the effort in. So
yeah, two-way street for sure.
Yeah, because otherwise we're going to end up with a very weak culture of people who are full of entitlement and expectation, and they lose perhaps some of the old style rules and you know, standards that, dare I say, a dinosaur like myself would be remembering. But okay, good. So I appreciate that. Now the other thing is, Serife, so when you're doing your SLAs and your contracts, okay, you know, do you also take into account how realistic it is to deliver on those KPIs, SPIs, and SLAs?
Yes, we do, definitely. Chris, to be honest, we are very keen on our SLAs. But you know, at the end of the day, if the ground handling agent doesn't have the you know, manpower, or doesn't have the enough capability to do the business, okay, then the SLA is of course going to the rubbish bin.
Yep.
But I cannot just see the point that it's the only ground handling's problem to solve it. I should add something to Mete, because the airlines shouldn't be encouraged to do their own self-handling, okay? So it is not our business, to be honest. So self-handling is something that the airline shouldn't be forced to do so, okay? What we support, what we think is that having more ground handling agents should be supported and should be you know, supported by the airports, should be supported by the governments, okay? So if ground handling agent is not working in an airport and he quits the job in that airport, it should be questioned, you know, and it should be questioned if there's something that the airport could do to get them into business, okay? So when you think that there's only 1 or 2 ground handling agent in a European airport, so it doesn't solve anybody's problem, okay? So this should be supported. While we are talking about SLAs, you know that we don't have SLAs with the airports, okay? We only have the SLAs with the suppliers there. So maybe we should think about it also, because it's just 3 of us, airline, ground handling, and airports together, and having the same responsibility level to do the business. Okay?
And the same thing, Serife, if you look at it, you've got a contract with a handling agent, and you've got a contract with a freight forwarder.
Yeah.
The freight forwarder impacts the handling agent impacts the freight forwarder, and they've got no agreement or no standards between them either. So, you know, in years to come, if somebody did a review or a thesis on what went wrong, and they said, well, you had a supply chain where only 3 of the 5 elements or 3 of the 6 elements actually communicated and spoke to each other, and the rest were independently linked, they'd be thinking, my goodness me, how on earth did they survive as long as they did?
There should be a common community between the ground handling agents, okay? So, and the airport authorities should ease their bureaucracies to have 1 ground handling agent in its airports, okay? For example, we see within the European community also, 1 ground handling agent can serve in a city, but on just one hour driving way from that city, he cannot give service in the other airports. But the passengers are waiting because of the bureaucracy, okay? So everybody should be going into that airport itself, having all the paperwork done once again. So we should ease those bureaucracies, okay? If we want to have the aviation grow bigger, we should look at it in a logical way, okay? Yeah. Of course, there should be bureaucracies, there should be documents to be done, there should be SLAs and rules to be obeyed. I agree, but we should revise it on today's world of aviation, I believe. So the rules can change, the rules can be revised in an upper level. Especially we should think about it. Right now we are just doing some outsourced business also, trying to get some different sources in ground handling in some different airports. Yeah. It's not easy. It's not easy. And on the other way, we have exclusive air contracts with the GHAs itself. So it's not a very proper way to work. But when we have our own passengers, not having the service on time, we are looking for many alternates. Airports is the first responsible ones who should take care of this situation, and they should get more responsibility, and they should be more in the game playing. Seriously.
So
they should be more active,
Yep. So Geert, you've got a new extended job description, my friend.
That's what I hear.
Now, guys, listen, that's great, and this is how change and transformation and transition and everything gets done, is by dialogue, discussion, chats, etc. Now, if you remember, I said towards the end I'd ask you about a wish list and a contribution list or commitment list. This is the time. So, who'd like to go first with their small wish list?
We have to be careful. We are afraid if they get real one day.
Exactly. What you wish for might come true. Yeah. Right. So, Mete, that means you're first.
Well, I wish we fast forward 2 or 3 years, and we come to a point where the issues with the labor market are solved. Of course, it's a little bit utopic, but I think there is a very delicate balance for ground handlers when it comes to cooperation that we have been all talking about throughout this panel.
Yeah.
There is a very delicate balance between cooperation and obedience with the competition regulations.
Yeah.
That's an area which has to be addressed. I think at that point, the airport's role is critical, because when certain things come as regulation or come from the authority, then there's an excuse in front of the competition authorities, because you have to obey that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think there is very limited scope if we expect ground handlers to do certain things by themselves or between themselves. We definitely need airport involvement in the process. And honestly, I see this very, very seldom in the airports where we are present. The airport's role as a regulator for the ground handling company should be increased. I know it is not easy, because it touches many different laws and regulations in every country. Maybe it may even become a political issue in some.
Yeah.
But I don't see any other way to get over this difficult period for the aviation industry, unless the airports get in the helm and ensure the minimum that is needed for all parties to survive.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Good. And what contribution or commitment would you make towards your wish list?
Full cooperation, but from our side.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Who'd like to go next?
I can be next.
Yeah.
So my wish list, I have four main issues in my wish list.
Well done.
First of all, there should be more ground handling agents. It should be supported worldwide. There should be hybrid pool models approved by the airport authorities. And there should be some incentives for passengers and airlines to fly from the airports. And there should be transition between airports for GHAs. If one could serve in an airport, it should also be serving in the other airport also. It's very important for us. So we should grow the business first on the ground handling side. If they don't grow, the airlines is not capable to grow, as expected.
Okay.
Because, every day there are more people who is flying, who wants to fly, but we want to support the system first.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Lovely. And your commitment or contribution?
We are always in the business. We can do what we need to do. We haven't stopped working any day during this COVID period. So even I can say that we think about more than our usual business, because it was a time to put everything on the table, and think about it.
Good, but what would you contribute or commit to? Like one of the things that Geert said earlier about people being open to data sharing. Are you committed? Would you commit to more open data sharing and be more?
Sure, of course. Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
Exactly. Exactly.
It's easy, Chris.
It's easy.
It's easy.
That's the logo we should put on baseball caps and T-shirts. Why?
No, it's easy. Why not?
Why not? Just do it. Why not? Yeah. All right. Lovely. And Geert?
Yeah, what I have to offer, and I think I mentioned it earlier, is the role we can play as an airport, is strengthen a community, a collaborative working, help you to recruit, retain, and foster your talent as ground handlers, and provide a resourcing pooling potentially for that, of course. But also when it comes to processes, secondly, provide a level playing field as an airport, play an active role in setting the guidelines or even rulemaking to a certain extent, and facilitate that, lead that digital transformation, make it available towards yourselves. Thirdly, provide with obviously the safe and secure, you mentioned it, Chris, safe and secure infrastructure that allows you to operate more efficiently towards a sustainable future. And that's a little bit of course, a buzzword, but it's definitely, I think there's a lot of detail that I already explained to that. A lot more we can do on this too. What I'm looking for as a commitment, I guess, is what it's already been mentioned, is let's make sure that we provide each other that line of sight, that looking ahead, looking forward together on share our challenges, look for the opportunities, but also provide a line of sight in terms of data sharing. If an airline is able to share the data, then we can be a lot more predictive on the resource planning for Mete, on the ground handler resources, and when they need to scale up for a peak period or a down period. And I think thirdly, I think we're in this together. So let's work together on more harmonized, standardized processes and infrastructure. If we can do that, I can offer it, processes and infrastructure, and I can offer infrastructure, but I can only invest in this once, and I cannot invest a little bit here and then a little bit there. I rather invest in it once that suits the whole lot of you, or at least 80% of your needs. And I think that's where the gains are to be made. We're never going to make the 100% there, but at least I want to meet the 80% needs, the common 80% needs amongst the community and the ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you know something, just a little bit tongue in cheek now, guys, but a while ago, I think it was, who was it now? It was from KLM. Who was it? It was, had a little buzzer, and it went,
No, the buzzword buzzer.
Yeah, but it went like that, or it went like well done, and there was little things like that. And you know something? I think if everybody had to sit in a meeting when they had to have either agreements or understandings, and they weren't allowed to leave that meeting until they pressed one of those buzzers, and if they pressed those buzzers, that data went into a collective report, you'd see some different decisions being made. Because, like I said, all the buzzwords that are going around now, people have got to start doing it and stop talking like politicians and making things happen, because otherwise, the others are going to come in. You look at Maersk and CMA, all these guys buying their own aircraft, looking at their own control from front to end. They're not going to be waiting around for us to decide what we want to do and when we want to do it. However, with people like yourselves in the business, full of enthusiasm and engagement and commitment, I think the the sunrise will always come and it'll always be a better day tomorrow. So thank you very much for your input, your comments, your time. Really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you face to face somewhere very soon.
Thank you so much, Chris.